And let's begin with this confusing situation in Washington. It was Tuesday of this week that the commissioner said, and Charean was there to witness it, that Daniel Snyder, the owner of the Commanders, still not in day-to-day control of the team that he owns. And at some point, Goodell and Snyder will talk about it. And it's been nearly 9 months, and who knows when they'll talk about it. Who knows even if they need to talk about it, because the Washington Times has since reported that Daniel Snyder's back, that he's resumed his day-to-day role with the team, that he's been involved in big decisions like the trade for Carson Wentz. So I don't know what's going on here, and I asked the league for comment, and the comment that I got was along the lines of, we don't really have anything to add to what Rodgers said on Tuesday. I understand that, but you see, the report that came out after Tuesday doesn't really mesh with what Rodgers said. So either the report is wrong or Rodgers wrong. Something's not right, and that's why we asked the league, and I think it's a fair question. I don't really have anything to add isn't really an answer, Charean.
No, it's really not, Mike. And, he remains on 4 committees at the NFL, and I assume he wasn't at the owners' meetings. I never saw him, and I saw most of the owners, so I assume he wasn't there. But my question would be, if he's truly back in the day-to-day operations, did he ever leave? And if he really did leave, how long did he leave? We know Ron Rivera, after the trade for Carson Wentz, said on the record he had talked to the Snyders, plural, about the decision to trade for Carson Wentz. So he has been involved in the organization to some extent. I'm just curious, did he ever leave? And if so, how long did he leave for, Mike?
Well, and that's an excellent point, and it has been a very confusing situation from the get-go. I think at a certain level the NFL is afraid of him. I really do. He sues everybody. Yes. He doesn't want to get into a big fight. They don't want to get into a big fight with him. He brings the fight wherever he goes. Peter King made a great point earlier today. At what point, if you're Daniel Snyder, do you just say, life's too short for this crap? I'm paraphrasing, but you're under siege from every direction. Your fans hate you. Your team's not very good. Your partners really don't want to do business with you anymore. What keeps you going when the walls have completely closed in on you and all you have is your wife and your kids and maybe your dog if you have one? And that's it. At what point do you say, I really don't need this. I don't need money. I don't need the headache. I can just go back to enjoying my life without this extra stress. It really is unfortunate that his passion for the franchise drew him into it, and as a result, and he only has himself to blame, but the thing that he loved has now made him miserable, or at least he should be miserable. I don't want him to be miserable, but how could you not be miserable?
Well, and that's the thing, Mike. The NFL would love for him to go quietly in the night, sort of like Jerry Richardson did, but it just doesn't seem like that's going to happen. This just seems like a drama, and it is a drama of Daniel Snyder's making, as you said, but it seems like a drama that's going to end very badly for the antagonist, who is Daniel Snyder in this story. And my question is, who else from the NFL is he going to take down with him? What else does he know? Because it's always seemed like the NFL really doesn't want to force him out, and he's not going to go on his own accord. So how does this end? What happens? And if they do end up forcing him out, who does he take down with him, Mike? Because it just seems like that's kind of been the case of, we want to protect him because he knows too much, or there's other stuff that could come out on us, or whatever the case may be. But there's more to this story, I think, than what we've even heard now, and we've heard a lot.
Some would say he's already taken down John Gruden, that Daniel Snyder is the one responsible for the emails that were leaked. Now, I don't know that, but I know that the universe of people who had access to those emails was extremely small, and Snyder, obviously, one of the people who had access because they were on his servers, his team's internal digital operation. And whoever did it is the person to blame for Congress being actively involved in this. There was no issue. There was no investigation. There was nothing. It was over. They had played it perfectly when they announced the findings, although they really don't have any specific findings to share, of the 10-month investigation conducted by Beth Wilkinson on Thursday, July 1. Perfect timing, long 4-day weekend for 4th of July. A lot of people off Friday, a lot of people off Monday. The world really didn't get back up and running again until Tuesday the 6th, and everyone had forgotten about it. It was over. It was done. It wasn't until early October when the John Gruden emails surfaced that people started putting two and two together that something's not right here. Something is missing. Transparency is needed, and that's what fueled this congressional investigation, which has now taken a turn into financial irregularities. Reportedly, according to frontofficesports.com, 2 sets of books. And Charean, I said this yesterday, I can't help but wonder whether or not somebody from the NFL that would very much like to see Daniel Snyder out is feeding information to this committee through back channels to get them to come after Snyder, because it becomes a lot easier for them to be done with him if he is forced out, not by his partners, but by circumstances related to potential criminal liability if it gets to that point.
Well, and Mike, how does this play out with the House Oversight Committee? Exactly what happens now? What are the next steps that they're going to take in this?
Well, there's a very small percentage of these investigations that become public hearings, and that's what the NFL behind the scenes is trying to finesse. That's why you have lawyers and lobbyists talking to the people who are on the committees and their staff members. You really don't need to have a hearing on this. Now, it may not be quite so direct like it would be on a TV show, but the bottom line is they are trying to keep this from becoming a bigger deal than it is. You try to placate the folks on the committee. You try to make them think they're wasting their time if they have what really is a show trial when one of these committees has an open hearing, but it can be very valuable because it gets the attention of the public and the private entities out there that know that they are subject to governmental oversight. And there could be legislation that affects everybody coming out of it, and all these things come to light. So I think what they'd like to avoid is a hearing at which Daniel Snyder, Roger Goodell, Beth Wilkinson, and others come and testify. That's when it gets real, and I think that's what they're trying to avoid. And as a practical matter, the clock is ticking because the widespread belief is that the midterm elections later this year will result in the Republicans taking control of the House again. And the moment that happens, I think, is when this investigation is over. So there is a ticking clock on what can be done, and the NFL, presumably, trying to run out the clock. That's what they did back in July, successfully. They ran out the clock of any criticism that emerged then, and they're trying to run out the clock now. I think that's the overriding goal. But if the committee trips over something that results in a referral to the Department of Justice, then you got a different problem altogether. And see, for as much as the NFL needs to worry about the legislative branch, the NFL also needs to worry about the judicial branch, because all it takes is one ambitious prosecutor who decides to exercise very broad discretion to go after one of these American oligarchs who has crossed the line, and everybody needs a reminder on what the law does and doesn't allow. So I think that's the worst case scenario for Washington and for the NFL. But the NFL may be welcoming portions of that worst case scenario because it would help them, as Miles would say, it would rid them of this meddlesome priest once and for all.
Oh, that's the truth, Mike. You know, you talked about Daniel Snyder, why he just doesn't go and enjoy life and enjoy his kids and whatever else he does in his free time. And the only thing I would say to that is to walk away is the losses to me would add up. And I would either not be hands-on like I've been for my entire career and figure out I'm the problem for this organization, or I would sell the team and move on. The losses would add up to me. I mean, this is a team that the last 14 years has had 3 postseason appearances and no wins. 1991 was their last Super Bowl. Their last playoff win was 2005. If I'm Daniel Snyder, I don't enjoy this. I don't enjoy losing every single week, every single year, not being in it, not being a contender. And maybe he thinks he can keep turning this around year after year after year, but that just doesn't seem like a lot of fun to me. So I'm not sure why he's enjoying being in this position, being the antagonist, being the guy everybody loves to hate. Even Washington Commanders fans don't like Daniel Snyder and want him out of there. They probably want him out of there more than anybody else, simply because the losses have added up under his tenure. So that part of it to me doesn't add up. That what enjoyment really does he get out of this? Does he get the limelight, being in the limelight? I mean, nobody looks at him positively in that limelight. So I'm not sure what he gets out of owning this team, Mike, other than getting rich and richer every single year.
I was told back in 2020 when he was fighting with his limited partners who were trying to sell their interest in the team, they couldn't find buyers because people, frankly, don't want to do business with Daniel Snyder. Snyder ended up buying them out entirely. There was litigation. It was ugly. It was nasty. It was messy. I was told back then he's determined to give the team to his kids. And that could be the solution to this. He steps aside. Wife takes over. Wife gives it to the kids at some point, and that's it. And it's done. He doesn't have to sell it. He gets to keep it, and his kids get to have it. And Washington Commanders fans will hope that, as I said earlier today, and I don't mean any disrespect here, but it would be a natural reaction if you're a Washington fan. You want to make sure the apple falls in the next orchard over if it's Daniel Snyder's kids who are running the team. Let's hear from Alex Smith, former Washington quarterback. He was on with Rich Eisen today, and apparently he said a few things. I haven't heard them yet, so it's going to be news to all of us. Here's Alex Smith from earlier.
So you're saying whatever was going on in the front office was affecting your ability to play football and focus on?
Yeah, I mean, how could it not? How could it not? I mean, for me, all the stuff there with just the entire organization from ownership down, head coaching and GM. It's a lot of there's been historically a lot of drama there, and it's a big market. Obviously the capital and a lot going on, and that organization is a really storied franchise, and there's a lot of turmoil and a lot of distractions. So to say that the stuff going on in the building doesn't infiltrate the locker room or out on the field would be crazy. That happens everywhere. I think that's what great organizations eliminate, and the bad ones have a hard time with. All that noise creeps into the building, and it does. It does affect the product on the field. So I think the great organizations and coaches have a knack to keep that out of the building, to quiet the noise, to decrease distractions and focus on football. But that's easier said than done.
I can make it a lot easier for him. I can shorten that entire answer to 5 words. You know what they are, Charean. Dysfunctional teams do dysfunctional things. And I'm embarrassed that I had to actually count them out on my hand, but I did. I didn't want to get it wrong. But that's really what he's saying. That's what he's saying.
Yeah. Well, it is. And it's been like that for a long time since Daniel Snyder took control of this football team, Mike. It's no different. And, I mean, Alex Smith, who was there from 2018 to 2020, just skewered Dan Snyder and this organization. I mean, he used words like turmoil and difficult to focus, and it starts from ownership on down, and turmoil, difficulties, all of those things, all of those key words. Alex Smith used them in his interview with Rich Eisen. So I think that tells you something. I mean, none of that's a surprise to any of us on the outside, but to have somebody who was on the inside for 3 years saying that tells you a lot about the state of this franchise right now, Mike.
Not a surprise, and it makes it even harder for people like Ron Rivera, who I think is of incredibly great coaching stock, great character. The best thing that team has going right now is Ron Rivera. And he said earlier this week that it's kind of hard when the team is getting dumped on all the time and you get sick of it. Well, you did take the job. You did kind of know. And Ron Rivera, I think, would have had options. He wanted that job. But